All right, everybody, welcome to season 2, episode 1 of the Detroit Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Melinda B. Powers, and today we have Lawrence Patrick III. He is phenomenal. I worked with him briefly when I was in New York. It was such an amazing time, and he's going to share some really great stories with us. Lawrence, how are you today?
Doing great. I'm just having a great Tuesday.
That's awesome. How often do you get to say that?
Right, exactly. That's why I like to acknowledge it.
Yes, yes. So you are in the Bay Area, correct?
That's right. I'm in.
Okay.
I'm actually in Alameda, so we're just south of Oakland. It's an
Okay.
island just south of Oakland. So yeah, Silicon Valley, Bay Area, East Bay, however you want to describe it.
Okay. Well, we don't want to talk about that right now. Right now, we want where you came from. So give us a
That's
brief
right.
background of where you came up in Detroit and your kind of evolution through. Let's just take us up to high school before you flew the nest, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So I actually lived the when I was really young. I lived on Foyer, which is East 8 Mile area. So that's where I really kind of started out in a small house there right by the freeway, and then uh, we moved to Canterbury, which is in Sherwood Forest. I went to Hampton Elementary School there for
Mhm.
first and second grade, and then we transferred and moved to the North End, and moved into actually the childhood home of my father and all of his siblings on King Street. And
Wow.
so King is just right off of Woodward, right there by St. Matthew's, St. Joseph's Church. But yeah, we grew up. I grew up really on this in the same house where my dad was born and raised, and so that was like really amazing. That was unexpected and really interesting because a lot of his stories like about chores and stuff like that is like in literally in the same house, so you can't really you can't really argue. They're like, take
Right.
this trash out, and you're like, well, Dad. And he's like, I used to take the trash out. You take the trash out. So it's like it's real generational. But no, I
Hardcore.
had a great experience. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay. And then what schools were you at when you had to move?
Yeah, so like I said, started out at Verner Elementary, then went to Hampton, which is a public school, and then to Golightly. And
Oh,
Golightly is
you
where I
went to
went to
Go
school, third
Lightly.
grade through eighth grade. I went to Golightly.
Oh,
So
I
there were
went to
four
Bates.
alternative schools in Detroit Public Schools,
Hmm.
and I know you went to Bates. We used to have that rivalry happening. It was Open,
Hmm.
Bates, Burton, and Golightly, and we used to have that rivalry that was like fierce. Actually, some
Yes.
of my best friends today went to Bates, and but we did. We played academic games
Yes.
against each other. Bates always had amazing teams. Golightly always had
Hmm.
amazing teams, and we used to just go at it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
just a note
It was
on
so
that.
much
Did you
fun. But
know
yeah,
that
Golightly was a
Mr.
real.
Okay,
Huh?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I know we got a kind of a delay. I was just gonna
No, go ahead.
mention that Mr. Holstein, who academic games for Bates, he
Yes, the legend.
celebrated on Friday his 50th year of teaching.
Wow, I had no idea he was
Still
still
there.
at it. That
Yes.
he's the Yoda. He's the goat, man. He is that guy. Like we should have a. There should be a key. He should get the key to the city. There should be like a day. That's his
Hmm.
day. And
Yes.
like I mean, he has educated and trained so many young people
So
around logic and critical thinking and and math and really advanced ways of thinking about problem solving. I mean, he's just a legend. I went to go lightly, and we looked up to him. So,
yes,
um,
he's awesome. I mean, they
yeah,
had to tear him away from his classroom so he could attend the tribute last Friday.
wow, I believe that
Yeah.
too. I believe that
Yeah.
man, that guy's a legend. That guy is an absolute legend.
Yeah. Okay. So continue. I'm sorry. I just had to add that in.
No, that's real. That's real Detroit talk right there. If you know who that is.
Mhm.
Um, but so yeah, so I went to Golightly and these schools that I mentioned, Open, Detroit Open School, Golightly, Burton International, and Bates Academy. These were 4 experimental schools that were created around a very different curriculum and a very different instructional approach. Each school was very unique and different. Golightly, the school I went to, was a K-8 school with a lot of emphasis around arts and computer programming
Mhm.
and kind of the intersection of like culture and a liberal arts education. And we didn't know that's what it was at the time. We just thought it was school,
Right.
but that's actually what it was now that I'm older and more educated. And one thing that I just have to just shout out about Goliath is we just had amazing music teachers. Like we had Marsha McNeil, we had Linda Brown, we had Jose Taylor. I mean, and all of them were just amazing, like legendary, music teachers who not, they taught us how to play, and they taught
Mhm.
us the theory of music and how to understand it from like an intellectual standpoint. But they were so cutting edge and futuristic in their approach. And we didn't know that at the time. We just, we little kids just going to school, sometimes doing what the teachers tell us to do.
Right.
But in retrospect, now that I've actually been around a lot of professional musicians, like, wow, what we were getting was amazing. I was telling somebody the other day the story about how at Golightly we actually had a prototype for one of the first, um, sequencers, like a music sequencer that they use to make, all kinds of hip hop music today. Like literally,
Okay.
like one of the first devices that could connect to a PC. We had it. We had a prototype, and we were learning how to program it as little kids. I mean, I was in like the
Wow.
4th or 5th grade when we had this thing. Yeah, it's amazing on an Apple II computer. It's just, yeah. I'm just so grateful for that experience and all that we were exposed to.
Yeah. Almost kind of too connecting to the roots of EDM to Detroit.
It is. It's
Like
so
it
true.
took me so long to realize that the music we were listening to growing up was like European
I
and
know that's so mind blowing when you realize that.
Cosmic Rain Dance. I listen to that now like we were jamming to this and this was not everywhere. This was our
That is
dance
so
music.
Detroit. That is
Yes.
so Detroit. And I have my playlist on Spotify and just realizing like the diversity of the origin of this music and where these artists were from all over the world.
Mhm.
And some of it we were just listening to it straight up. I mean, like we didn't remix
Mhm.
it all. Other pieces, we took it and we kind of mashed it up and remixed it and put a little Detroit in it. But I mean, we were appreciating kind of the future direction of where music was going,
That's
really
true.
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so then after Go Lightly, we want to skip that era and go to the next era.
Yeah, well, that next era is about Cast Tech. Yeah, so I'm a proud Cast technician, class of '93. I had
All
an amazing
right.
experience at Cast Tech. And I was really active again in music there.
Mhm.
I was the president of the symphony and the marching band. I was really, really into it. We actually kind of restarted the marching band when I was there because Cass hadn't had a marching band in years, in decades.
Right.
And David Sneed, who later became the superintendent for the whole school system, at the time he was our principal.
Okay.
And of course he went to an HBCU, so he had that flavor and really understood what the bands were about and how it was, not just from an educational standpoint but from a school spirit standpoint. And so, Dr. Sneed, someone who was a Cass alum, he came back and school spirit was a big priority for him. The academics, he knew that that was going to happen, but it was like school spirit. I want kids to be proud that they go here. I want them to understand the legacy and embrace it and appreciate it. So one of his big initiatives was to push to really reinvigorate school spirit. He's the one that brought in Coach Wilcher and elevated him. He's now, I guess, he's probably the winningest coach in the
Mm.
PSL. I mean, he's the man. He's Cass
Right.
Tech is now ranked football team. When I was there, we weren't as much of a powerhouse. That's
Mhm.
really happened over a period of time. But I give David Snead a lot of credit for
Okay.
bringing in Coach Wilcher and Sharon Allen, who
Right.
was um, who was hired through a competitive process to be the band director at Cass, and she just came in. She just was
Guns blazing.
relentless and fearless, and yeah, I mean, we just stood up this marching band in like a few weeks, and you know the rest is history. Now Cass has a legendary marching band.
Yeah, I came a little later in that. I was class of '98, but I heard a lot of stories. You did not tell us yet. You've mentioned music several times, but what did you play?
Well, I played different instruments in the marching band. I was on the drum line. I played the bass drum. We had a lot of legendary musicians in our band at that time on the drum line. For example, we had Ali Jackson, you
Mm,
know, probably the greatest jazz drummer alive right now. Definitely
right
the
now,
greatest
yeah.
jazz drummer of our generation.
Didn't he just move back to
Um,
Detroit?
just moved back to the D.
I
Yep,
heard
he just
about
bought a
that. Yep.
house. He's back in Detroit. He played a special concert as part of the jazz festival this past September. But he was on our drum line, and we also had Kareem Riggins for a short time on our drum line there on the snare line, and of course Kareem is a legendary producer, musician, composer, jazz drummer. Plays drums with Common. He's also in
Oh, okay.
August Green. I mean, he's an amazing musician. He's the one who actually completed Jay Dilla's album when he passed.
Oh,
So,
really?
yep. So like imagine our drum line. Like our drum line was sick. Like we
Right.
had
Yeah.
real, yeah, it was crazy. But it was an amazing experience. I wouldn't trade it. It was so fun. We learned so much too.
Awesome. So that's where your foundation was set in the D, and then from there you went to good old Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Yeah. So I was yeah, my parents were shocked that I chose Florida A&M University on the highest of seven hills
Highest of
in
seven
Tallahassee
hills.
because I had a full academic scholarship to University of Michigan, Michigan State, a lot of different universities made really great packages and offers to me based on my academics and SAT scores and stuff like that. But the thing about FAMU, and I don't know that I've ever even told this story before, but FAMU was literally the first college that tried to recruit me. And what I mean is literally in the ninth grade, I'll never forget, I was at my locker in Cass, changing classes or whatever. My locker was right across from the auditorium door where, you could kind of escape the stage, like the
Yeah.
little secret bat exit. And so the
Hmm.
president of Florida A&M University, Dr. Frederick Humphreys, he comes out of this door with the principal of the school, David Sneed,
Mm,
and I'm just at my locker just doing my thing. And so the principal comes over to me and introduces me and says, Lawrence, I want you to meet Dr. Fred Humphreys. He's the president of Florida. I never really heard of Florida A&M. This is the president of Florida A&M University. Um, he just awarded thousands of dollars of scholarships to our students. And then he introduced me and said, this is one of our top students. He's only a freshman, but he's on a great path. And so then Fred Humphrey says to me, he shook my hand, and he's giant, like he's like
right. Yes.
six whatever,
He's very
4, 6, 5.
tall.
Yeah, very tall. So I'm down in my locker. I'm looking up at this giant man, and he shakes my hand and he says, "Listen," he says, "if you keep your grades up, when you graduate, I'll pay for you to go to college." And he said
Wow.
it just like that. Now, I mean, that's the best elevator pitch, like of all time. Like literally, I met this man. He didn't know anything about me other than the principal says I'm a good student. So he shakes my hand and says, "If you keep your grades up, I will pay for you to go to college."
Wow.
And that really stuck with me. So when it came time to look at schools, even though I had a lot of colleges sweating me, it's like I never forgot that. And so, Florida A&M also was unique because they were the only school. All of those schools offered me different types of packages, but Florida A&M was the only school that actually called my mom. And that was very smart because my mom was dead set on me going to University of Michigan. But
Mm,
FAMU, they called my mom and had a conversation with my mom and said, well, what do you want for him? What are your
mm.
dreams and hopes and aspirations for your son? And I came home that day and my mom said, well, son, I've been thinking about Florida A&M. And I was like, Mom, what have you
What?
been going on? But that made the difference. And
Wow.
that's really true. The mantra of the school when I went there was excellence with caring.
Excellence and caring. Yeah.
Excellence with caring. And that's what that was my experience there.
Yeah. So as another alum, it's a special place. I didn't have quite the same experience, and I know you marched there. I did not. I
Mhm.
gave up marching band in high school, and Mr. Pruitt, God rest his soul, tried to get me to audition. I just refused. I was like, no, I want a life in college. So I took a different route.
Right.
But
Right. Right. Right.
and the relief I felt once I was a freshman, I came on campus and I saw everyone with their horns all dirty in the cab. I was like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to be that person.
Yeah, dirty. I mean, that's like, it's a badge of courage, but yeah, you would just be constantly
Mhm.
dirty for like the first
Yeah,
semester,
pretty
out
much
there on that dusty
so.
patch marching.
But I
But
respect all of those, including yourself, that took that path. You paved the way for a lot of other people. The band, keeps this great reputation because of that. So, yes.
yeah, yeah, no, the band is amazing. I think the thing that was so romantic to me about the 100, which is the marching band at Florida A&M, um, every HBCU marching band has a nickname.
Right.
Not everybody knows that. They all have a nickname. So band
Mm-hmm.
heads, we refer to them by nicknames.
Mm-hmm.
So the 100, that's the marching band for Florida A&M. Thing about the 100 is that the history of it is so romantic. Like when you realize how much innovation they actually brought into all marching band. There are many, many marching band techniques that are standard across the world that were actually created in Tallahassee by
Really?
the 100, by Dr.
Please
William P.
educate
Foster.
us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, things like the silent four, blowing the whistle and then having the four count. I mean, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of maneuvers. Certain marching, like actual the way you march with your legs, like the technique of marching. A lot of innovations that came out of FAMU. The biggest innovation was, being able to blend traditional march repertoire with contemporary and mainstream popular music. That was a huge innovation that FAMU really pioneered. That's really
Mm-hmm.
copied now by everybody. But
Right.
um, yeah, it's just a great history, a great legacy, and it was amazing to be a part of that number. Even though I only marched briefly, it was an amazing
Okay.
experience.
I mean, it takes, that's a lot of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears. I just, I knew myself well enough to know that wasn't for me. But,
Well, Cass was great preparation. I mean, one thing I'll
oh,
never forget
sure.
is when I went to FAMU and I auditioned. They kind of looked at me like, "Where do they make you? Why do you know so many rudiments?
Right.
How did you sight read all of that
That
music?"
music, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they like offered me a music scholarship on the spot. But that was Cass
Mhm.
Tech. That was the preparation that we have from
Ain't
Benjamin
date number
Pruitt
one
and Sharon
and number
Allen and
two.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They were the best. I mean, and it's I kind sometimes I kind of kick myself for not wanting to be more of a musician. I just love music. I don't necessarily love playing it. I like to listen to it and enjoy it. So that I was always a lazy musician, and our teachers hated that because I wasn't bad. They're like, but you can play. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, I was a section leader, in the marching band. I did that, but
Yeah.
I just really wasn't motivated to
That's a
just go
big thing
all
though.
out. Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I fought my
Right.
way. But yeah, I just always had respect for all of the really top performers, like, Roland Hamilton, good friend of mine, excellent piano. We're still trying to get him on the broadcast. If you're listening, Roland, we're still expecting you. Had to call him out. And so Charles Wilson, we've interviewed Charles. He was on last season. So it's just awesome to see the product of that environment because it's just a fertile with so much talent. So like let's get back to you. So you're at FAMU. You said you marched briefly. What happened in your experience at FAMU that catapulted you into the path that got you where you are now? Because I want to get to that because I don't know that whole
Yeah.
story.
So I had a really interesting career path. I was sort of on this dual track. Initially, I thought I was certain I was going to be a musician. My dream was to be a composer. I wanted to be like,
Oh, okay.
William Grant Still or John Williams. Like I wanted to be known as a really respected composer who could also come up with infectious melodies that were impossible to resist, that would stand the test of time. John
Wow.
Williams, the music he created, people will be humming it, until the end of time.
Right.
And I wanted to be like that. And so I was doing everything to prepare myself to be a composer, which is why I played so many different instruments at Cass. I played the bass drum in the marching band. I played the electric bass and string bass in the jazz band. I was first chair viola in the symphony. I played string bass in this symphonic band. I played tuba in the concert band, piano in the percussion ensemble. Like I played in every performing ensemble at Cass and Music. I think 9 at one point. I was in 9 performing
Wow.
ensembles. And the reason why was because I was trying to understand how music works so that I could be a better composer.
Hmm.
And it's very hard if you are a soloist and you only focus on solo repertoire. It's hard to be a great composer because you don't actually pay any attention to orchestration and what's
Exactly.
happening in the rest of
And
the
how it all
ensemble.
fits
So
together.
exactly. So that's why I was trying to do that. At the same time, I got interested in journalism and started to go down this path around working on the school newspaper, the Cass Technician.
Hmm.
And we were very fortunate in Detroit to have leaders at the Detroit Free Press who thought it was really important for kids in Detroit public schools to have access to a school paper because the school district didn't really have the resources to produce school papers. So the Free Press said, you know what, we'll print the paper. How about that? And they did. They would devote an issue, I think it was like, once a month, maybe twice a month, to printing every single Detroit public school their newspaper in a special
Okay.
section. So that was like actually where our school paper came from. One of the cool aspects of that is that when it came time to edit it, you would actually go to the Detroit Free Press building on Lafayette and actually edit it. So you would be in the newsroom and using a real computer that they used to put out the real Detroit Free Press and learning the commands and all of that, and you would interact with the real reporters and editors who worked there. So they also, as a result of interacting with all these young people, they said, we can do more than this. What if we had a summer program where we brought them in to be apprentices and really understand what we do and how we do it? Maybe we can get more of them interested in careers in journalism. And
Hmm.
so this program was created. Neil Shine was the publisher at the time. Heath Merriweather was the executive editor, and Bob Magruder was the managing editor. And Louise Reed Ritchie, who was working for Neil, she's the one who really kind of got this off the ground to create this program. And it was basically a selective program. You had to apply. They put you through interviews and all of that, and they would pick like 12 students from Detroit Public Schools to come to the Free Press for, I think it might have been 6 weeks in the summer,
Okay.
and it was intense. It was kind of like,
Sounds
this is
like
a
it.
crash course. We're going to teach you everything you need to know to be a young journalist. And all of the classes were taught by the editors from the Detroit Free Press, which was
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a boot camp.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who came through that boot camp, have gone on to do really big things as journalists. James Thomas is one of the engineers and product folks at the New York Times. He did a Knight Wallace Fellowship at the University of Michigan. Leslie Foster is a television news anchor for the CBS affiliate in Washington, D.C. Jonna Berry is the head of content operations for Wired magazine.
Wow.
Um, Jamel Hill came through
Hmm.
that like, I mean, it's just like a never ending stream of people in journalism who came through that program. We all did that program together. As a matter of fact, Jamel was in my class. We were in the same
Oh,
group
wow.
that did that summer apprenticeship at the Detroit Free Press. So by the time I got
Okay.
to FAMU, I had done internships in Detroit, apprenticeships, for, well, I did a 1 year of apprenticeship and then 2 internships. So I'd already done 3 summers working at the Detroit Free Press by the time I got to FAMU. And I was super, um, I was super excited and energized to work on the FAMU and the school paper at FAMU and
Hmm.
just do everything to try to like soak up everything. I was in like super sponge mode. So that's
Okay.
how I really took this pivot into a journalism path. And I majored in journalism at FAMU, worked on the school paper, and just was super, um, just all the way in on becoming a journalist. And then in my sophomore year, the internet happened, and that
Oh,
changed
changed the
everything.
game. Yeah,
It changed everything.
you did.
So
With music
yeah,
too.
yeah, It did. It changed everything with music too. And actually, by that time, I was pretty invested in digital music. I mean, I was one of the only people that had like a computer, had my own computer set up in my little dorm room with
Mm.
like a full MIDI rig. It looked like a studio. Like I had everything in there.
Uh-huh.
It was crazy. People used to come in and say, "How did you fit all of this in this little tiny room?"
Mhm.
But yeah, I was serious. All the rappers on campus used to come by and ask me to make beats for them and stuff. It was it was crazy. It was
You
crazy.
too. You were
I
that
just missed
dude.
Common. Common was a few years before me at FAMU. He
Yeah,
didn't. Yeah, so I didn't overlap with him, but I mean there was still a lot of there were some nice MCs who came through FAMU, and as
really.
I think back on it, maybe I should have maybe I should have invested in time making beats.
Been that guy.
Yeah, I've been that guy, but yeah.
So then, sophomore year, the internet happened, and so then, what did that do with your path and your trajectory?
So actually, I actually learned about the internet at FAMU from an alum who came back to um, to try to try to I guess give a heads up to the faculty at the journalism school about what was coming in terms of the World Wide Web and the internet. At that time, you know, the internet is really kind of the backbone. It's like the foundation, and then you have these services that sit on top of the internet.
Right.
And the one that we use the most nowadays is the World Wide Web. So we've kind of started to equate the World Wide Web with the internet. But at
With the
that time,
internet.
we were making a big distinction. And so it was really the World Wide Web, which is where the www comes from in the URL.
Right. All I
Anyway,
know
he was
is
coming.
at that, yeah. So this is like, so we're talking maybe like 95, 96,
This is like 94. So this is the beginning of
94. Okay, a little
94.
before.
Yeah. Or sorry, the end of 94. So this is like maybe August, September of 94.
Okay.
And this alum came back and he did like a Saturday workshop for faculty. And it was really only for faculty, but the dean said, "Hey, Lawrence, you should go to this because you're really into technology." So I did, and he was right.
Mhm.
And you know, he just laid it out and showed us. He did like a tutorial on how to make a very, very primitive web page.
Website, yeah.
And yeah, the second that I did it and I hit refresh, my mind was blown. Like
Mm-hmm.
I already knew how to program and code, so understanding the implications of this, it just blew my mind, and I completely went in a different direction. I was actually supposed to go back to Detroit that summer and do another internship at the Free Press, and I asked for permission to go to Silicon Valley
Oh.
because Knight Ridder, the company that owned the Free Press, also owned the newspaper
Mhm.
of record for Silicon Valley, the San Jose Mercury News. So I wrote this very detailed letter, a proposal, basically saying, "Here's why I want to go to Silicon Valley and why you should let me do that."
Mm.
And they granted me permission, and so I did my internship in San Jose at Mercury Center, which was the first daily news website, and that was just a huge game changer because I was just right there in the mix where everything was taking off
Right.
related to the internet.
Now it's funny. It just makes me think about my aunt gave my mom a computer, and I was dying to learn how to get. I'm like, we got to get on this internet thing. And so, oh, did we lose you? I think we lost Lawrence. We're gonna wait for him to come back. All right, there he is. Okay, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go. No, no problem. I know the internet.
The internet. It's great.
Apropos. No, I was saying I was getting ready to tell a short story. So I remember my aunt gave my mom this computer. This had to have been 95 or 96. And I was like, I gotta get on the internet. How do we get on the internet? I remember I was just plugging the phone in. I didn't know how it worked. I was just doing stuff.
Right.
And then we
Right.
didn't have a modem or anything. I'm just plugging the phone line in like nothing's happening. So then finally my mom,
Right.
my mom was a teacher with DPS. So eventually she used that teacher discount. We got a new Mac. And so, oh, that was game over. Once I figured that out, oh
Yeah.
my God, AOL chat rooms. And people was like, do you date online? I was like, I look in the chat room. That was the first online dating. Because
That's
you
right.
register and match. It was the AOL chat room. That's
Right.
how you met people. Hmm.
Right.
So
The
yeah,
chat rooms. Wow, that
the
takes me
chat
back.
room. And
Yeah.
everybody had, it was all these different interests, groups, and it was crazy, but it was like, and
It
it was
was
funny.
super fun too, though.
It was super fun. My best friend lived 9 blocks away from me. We would
Yep.
get on our computers every night and chat and go to different chat rooms.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of missed that. I mean, the anonymity of it, and just the
Yeah.
discovery, and like that feeling of community is it's hard to find it. I mean, there are a few places,
Uh-huh.
Reddit, or whatever.
Mm,
I mean, people make private groups now, so I mean, people still
right.
do it, but a little bit
It's
different.
changed
It's
a lot.
different than when
Yeah, it's
it's really
not the
anonymous.
same. And I think too,
Yeah,
just the excitement of something new made it like so much
right,
fun. But it was nothing worse than someone calling you and booting you off.
right, right. You had to learn the code to turn off the call waiting.
Incoming.
That's what you
Yeah,
had to
yeah.
do. Right.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So that you
But
could
anyway,
stay
so
on.
you're at FAMU, you do your internship in Silicon Valley. I know that blows your mind. So then for your
Yeah.
last 2 years of school, what does that do? And then, because
Yeah.
I
So
went
I
to
made
jazz
I
at
made a really
right after jazz at Lincoln
Mhm,
Center. Okay, so
mhm.
you got to catch me up from there to there.
Right.
And
Right.
then from
Okay.
there to now.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I was there at a really interesting time. That was the summer that Netscape went public. So that's really
Oh,
when the internet really took off and was
yes.
really born. Um,
Yes.
like literally at this time, like nobody had a website. Like there were no
Nope.
websites. Like we were one of the only websites. The only reason we even had one was because we were a newspaper of record in Silicon Valley, and because we knew we had a lot of readers who worked in technology because of where
Mm-hmm.
our newspaper happened to be located.
Right.
Um, but that summer, everything changed, and everybody realized, oh shoot, we should probably create a website. Um, and so, I made a very interesting decision, which was even though I was right in the middle of it, and I knew how to build websites, and I knew how to code, and I'm living literally in San Jose, in the heart of Silicon Valley. I decided I needed to go back to Tallahassee, and at the end of my internship, finish college. No one pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, you could just start a company out here and
Be
then go
rich
back."
here with
You
us in
know what
about
I mean? Like
20 years.
it literally didn't even cross my mind.
Be
Like it
a
was
baby
just not
millionaire.
anything anyone said to me. So I went back to Tallahassee.
Okay.
I finished college, and when I graduated, I came right back to San Jose, right back to Silicon
Hmm.
Valley to work. I worked for Knight Ridder, which was the corporate parent of the Detroit Free Press and the San Jose Mercury News and many other newspapers. I think we had 36 properties or something like that at our peak. But it was like the large, respected national newspaper chain at the time. The other big one
Definitely.
was Gannett, but
Gannett,
Knight Ridder
yeah.
was really kind of very different and had a very special culture, and was not afraid to invest in the future and invest in R&D and and the internet. And so I
Right.
felt right at home, and got a chance to work on a lot of the very early versions of platforms that became products that some people still use today, like Career Builder or
Hmm.
Cars.com or Home Game, which started out as Home Hunter. Um, and one of the things that I got to do that was really cool, really interesting was I actually worked with Elon Musk at his first big company, which was called Zip2.
Wow.
Yeah, they in Mountain View. So what happened was Knight Ridder invested in Zip2, and my job was to what today would probably be called, a UX strategist or a front end engineer. Basically, I did a combination of product management, user experience, and usability, um, design, and coding, front end coding. At that time, we didn't have all these separate job roles. It was like people just had to know how to do a lot of stuff. So anyway, so that was my job, and so I had to I was basically on loan to Zip2 to help them get these products off the ground, and my product was a real estate guide. And so literally I was sitting in a cube next to him for like a few weeks, and I
What?
didn't even know. The funny thing is he was not the CEO of the company. Um,
Okay.
so, you wouldn't know. I mean, unless you knew that he was the founder of the company, you wouldn't know
Hmm.
who he was. He was just another worker bee there.
Worker, yeah.
I knew who the CEO of the company was, and I would be in meetings with the CEO sometimes.
Hmm.
But I was sitting next to Elon, and I didn't know that he was the founder of this company, and I was kind of like,
Wow.
yeah. So it was really interesting, just to see how far he's come, and all the amazing things
Hmm.
he's doing now. To think that at one point I was like in the cube next to him in my
Yeah,
career. So Knight Rider
that's
was a really
cool.
sad kind of conclusion in terms of what happened with the company. It actually was the company was shut down. Basically, it was forced to dismantle itself and sell off its component parts, which I didn't even
Hmm.
realize was something that a company could be forced to do. But if enough
Right.
shareholders decide that's what should happen, then that can happen. And they had some
Yeah.
activist shareholders who didn't like the investments in internet and felt like the company had lost its way, so they did that. I actually left before the company shut down.
Okay.
I moved. I left Knight Ritter, and started my first startup company, which is called Mega School, and we
Hmm.
are a digital textbook company. Um, and then I moved to Michigan because my wife at the time wanted to go to graduate school at University of Michigan, and I couldn't talk her into going to like Stanford or Cal and staying out here. She's like,
Oh,
"No, I'm
okay.
going to University of Michigan." I was like, "Okay, great." So
Is she from Detroit?
she's from Michigan, yeah.
Okay.
So she was like, "No, I want to go to Michigan and be a Wolverine." So I said, "Okay." So we moved to Ann Arbor from San Jose, so she could
Hmm.
go to school. But we kept working on the company, and we had a great model. Our model was basically we were building a Wikipedia style textbook, and
Oh,
the idea
okay.
was that, yeah, there's a lot of duplication with textbooks. So our idea was if you had a dynamic textbook where it's easy to update it and you don't actually print it, you just put it all on a website. And the schools all have access to the internet so they can get all their materials that way. We were essentially trying to build that kind of a combination of Wikipedia and Khan Academy rolled into one.
Interesting.
We were just way too early because this is like 99, 2000,
Hmm.
2001. So that was
Khan
very
Academy
early.
is huge.
Yeah, we were really early though. Schools weren't really ready. Schools weren't really ready for that type of a
Right.
um, product. So what we learned from talking to schools is that they really needed help around training teachers how to use computers,
Hmm.
just straight up. And so we pivoted and focused on that. And we did have some schools in Detroit that contracted with us. We provided training for teachers. We also did on-site technical support for schools so that they wouldn't have to
Okay.
rely on central administration. If stuff broke, they had a contract with us. We'd come and fix it so the school could
Okay.
keep running. And so that company was Mega School. We ended up deciding to wind up the company and shut it down
Hmm.
because we just when the tech bubble burst in
Hmm.
2000, what happened was a lot of the big technology companies, they came into our lane and started offering the same services of the on-site contracts for support,
Yeah.
and then they wanted to subcontract us to do it, and it was just a terrible business deal, so we walked away from that.
Gotcha.
um, yeah, so that just wasn't, it just wasn't a great deal. But one of the things that happened for me was in the course of selling technology to schools, I got really passionate about the need to see dramatic change because I realized that even the schools that wanted to buy our product or our service, they couldn't do it because of red tape, because of bureaucracy, and just
Yeah.
because of the design of school systems. And I got super frustrated about that, and a little bit angry, to be honest. And so, my dad, who of course was the P in the Hope team, if you know
Hmm.
your Detroit political history, the Hope team took over the Detroit school board
Hmm.
um, back in the 80s, and
Okay.
they brought in a lot of reforms. They actually created the first charter schools in the country. Um, they did a lot of innovative things. But my dad, who obviously was very knowledgeable about school policy and education policy, he took me with him to a symposium in Milwaukee that was convened by Howard Fuller, who's a legendary civil rights activist and African liberation leader. he convened this meeting in Milwaukee where he brought together just all of these black people from all over the country. We didn't know each other. We were all just black people who cared about education, and he got us all in one room, and he essentially laid out it like the ultimate closing argument of all time, for African Americans, and how we think about education and how it intersects with our struggle for freedom and liberation. He just laid it out. It
Hmm.
was like the "I have a dream" speech for education policy. It was amazing,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
This is pre-smartphone. Otherwise, it would be on YouTube with like 20
Right,
million
somewhere.
likes or something. But at the end of that speech, I'm telling you, by the end of that speech, like everybody in the room was kind of like, "What do we need to do? Like, we'll run through a brick wall. Just tell us what to do." So after that meeting, in Milwaukee, we organized another meeting in D.C. And a lot of influential black leaders were there. Cory Booker was in the room.
Hmm.
Eugene Wade was in the room, who's a legendary education entrepreneur. Jim Shelton, who was the head of Race to the Top under Obama. He also was the head of education philanthropy for Bill Gates, and then he was the
Okay.
head of education philanthropy for Mark Zuckerberg. So Jim Shelton is just also a legend. He was in the room. Tom Stewart was in the room. He's the president of Patton University. So you had like this crazy collection of black leaders from around the country who were really serious about doing something on education. We met in DC at the Mayflower Hotel, and we created an organization called BAO, the Black Alliance for Educational Options.
Okay.
And you know, I ultimately was appointed to be the CEO of the organization, and served for almost 5 years, scaling it from a handful of people, like two people, to a team of 26, and we just grew the organization. And we had chapters all over the country. We hosted the largest national gathering of black parents and educators who were serious about education reform. We did that every year. We brought it to Detroit a couple of times.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and it was just an amazing experience. One of our main achievements was just growing the charter school movement and scaling that, but more
Okay.
importantly, creating lots of opportunities for black educators to be able to create schools and to be able to focus on quality. Our thing
Okay.
was our kids need options, but they need quality
Well,
options.
your options, right.
And so we were really fighting for that. And so I did this whole chapter in my career, just this pivot on education reform, which was, unexpected and and
Right.
and
It
kind of
that
crazy,
seems to
but
be a theme with you, the unexpected pivot.
yeah, I have a lot of really interesting pivots and jumps. After Bayo, I I was what happened was I was invited to participate in a fellowship for nonprofit CEOs, and
Okay.
at Stanford Business School, and I did it, and it was amazing. It was awesome.
Mhm.
Organized by Jim Fields, who was on faculty there, the black man who had organized this program. So I went and did the program. It was an amazing program, and right after, I was like, that felt great. I think I want to go back to school because I was appointed CEO of Bayo. I was only 26 years old. So I didn't even
Wow.
really have a chance to stop and catch my breath and think about, grad school or anything like that. So now I'm like 5 years in. I'm like, I think I want to go back to school and do a graduate program. And so I stepped down from Bayo to focus on graduate school. And the second I did, I think literally it was the day I sent off my application to Stanford. I think it literally was that same day. I got the phone call from Wynton Marsalis, the legendary
Mm.
jazz trumpeter and composer and
Trumpeter, yeah.
educator. He just called me up out the blue and was kind of like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about Jazz at Lincoln Center and what we're doing, and you should come help me do this." And I was kind of like, "Hey, man, I just I just left the
You
job
want to
because
go
I
to
want to go back to
school.
school." Yeah, yeah. And Wynton is an amazing leader. He's probably I've one theme in my career is I've had an opportunity to work with amazing leaders. At the Detroit Free Press, I got to work with Bob Magruder and Greg Huskisson and Neil Shine and Louise Reed Ritchie, um, and Heath Merriweather, and at Bayo, I got an opportunity to work with Howard Fuller and Deborah McGriff, who's a former superintendent of Detroit Public Schools. But really, Howard was just this amazing leader. I mean, he's just so intellectual and so powerful in his ability to inspire people and motivate them to action. And now I got Wynton Marsalis calling me, who's another,
Right.
amazing leader. Um, the thing that blew me away about working with Wynton was that, he is so intellectual. In addition to and on top of his ability to play the trumpet with so much soul and technical virtuosity.
Oh,
Um,
beautiful.
there's no one there. There's really no one like that. Like imagine if Oprah just sat down and could just play like a piano concerto. You'd be like, Oprah, I didn't know you were. Where were you hiding at? Like that's how Wynton is. Like Wynton, he has multiple domains where he just has this crazy ability level, and as a leader, just straight up just management science, like leadership, like textbook leadership, he has an amazing capacity there. As a composer, he's just an unprecedented composer, and his virtuosity and ability to write for classical and jazz in lots of different configurations. um, as an actual player, as a musician, there's never been anyone who had that level of virtuosity on classical trumpet and jazz trumpet. Like, do you know how hard that? Like, you actually know how hard that is because you're a musician.
Right. Our opening night for the symphony here in Jacksonville last season, he played opening night. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, he is an unprecedented individual. But what I was getting ready to say in my story is that the thing that blew me away was how much he reads. I'm like, how do you have time? Like, aren't you writing symphonies and practicing scale? Like, don't you need to go practice long tones, bro? Like, how do you have time? Like, I'm reading these books because this is my job. But how do you have time to read the same books I'm reading and be caught up on all this stuff? But he does. He's a speed reader and has a voracious appetite for knowledge.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so many great conversations were had in his kitchen as well as in the boardroom. But so I worked for Jazz Lincoln Center for almost 2 years, had a great experience there. I really created the blueprint for the organization in regard to digital and kind of corporate strategy, kind of giving them an ambitious plan to think about how can we grow and scale out what we're doing to make Jazz Lincoln Center a formidable force across multiple industries. It's already the largest organization in the world of jazz, but they're in many, many industries. They operate a nightclub, a concert hall, they have a library, they have a publishing arm, a record label. They have all of these pieces. And my job was to put it all together and create a good gumbo, create a good blueprint, a good recipe for how it could all come together.
They're certainly always streaming.
So I had a great time doing that. And then yeah, me too. And I love it. I love it when it organically pops up and it's Jazz Lincoln Center. It's
like,
the best.
Ooh, a free show.
Right. It's the best. It's the best. So so now this gets to where you and I met, which is in New York.
In New York.
Yes. I was working.
I mean, you literally just left Jazz.
Just
I think
left.
I met you there and then you were gone.
Yeah. And the reason why was behind the scenes, I was being heavily recruited to become CEO of a new nonprofit organization that was being created and launched in the U.S. It was the U.S. Arm of a global charity called Inspire, which operates a reach out website in Australia, which has been very successful.
With that while I was looking for a job.
Yes. And you were amazing. You were a huge help as we were getting it off the ground from the New York office. And the vision was to use technology to try to help young people who are going through tough times, to try to normalize tough times, destigmatize mental health, and help seeking around mental health issues. And we saw a lot of ways we could use technology through apps, through creating website that had fact sheets where young people could get kind of just real straight talk, like not a lot of preachy or judgmental kind of white papers, but like fact sheets and
practical things.
Yeah, practical, explanatory information to help people understand what they're going through.
Right.
So we did that. We built a community of young people around that to help each other. Um, and importantly, it got me back to the Bay Area, got me
It
back to
did.
Silicon Valley and back to San
Yep.
Francisco, which is where I wanted to be.
'Cause
Um,
you were
and
leaving, and I was sad. Like, I like this, but you're going away.
yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. That was a great time and a great experience. Anytime you start something new, like the beginning of something is always really exciting. And so
Exciting.
thank you for
Yeah.
helping me get it off the ground. It was
Thank
a
you for
lot of
letting me.
fun
I was bored
doing
and
it
kind
for
of
me.
depressed. That New York plan did not go the way I envisioned, and I ended up coming right back to Florida.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of one of the things about resilience and, that's one of the things we actually learned a lot about from doing the work with Inspire is that, resilience is really everything.
Mhm.
And we have to teach young people, but we also have to remind each other that the ability to bounce back and be resilient is a superpower.
It is.
And we all have to tap into it. We
Sure.
all do from time to time.
So, how did you
So
get from inspired to where you are now? Because I understand you're doing something I didn't even know existed in the
right.
area.
So yeah. So what I'm doing now is I run the San Francisco campus for Northwestern University. Yes, that Northwestern, the one
Yeah,
in
how did that
Evanston,
happen?
in the Big Ten. A lot of universities now are starting to think of themselves more globally and start to think about how they can create opportunities for their students to be immersed and learn about the culture of different places that are important. And Silicon Valley obviously is very important.
Obviously,
San Francisco
yeah.
Bay Area is really important. And so, Northwestern has made this very bold move to come to downtown San Francisco and put up purple banners everywhere. And, we have the 18th floor in a skyscraper.
Mm,
We're making a serious effort to, not just create a learning opportunity for our students, but also to engage and energize our alumni here in the Bay Area,
mhm.
while hopefully shifting the conversation that's happening in tech around media and news. Um, that's really important, really critical. I actually work for the Medill School of Journalism, Media, Integrated Marketing Communications, and so we're very
That
focused
makes sense.
on, yeah, right. It makes sense. The dots connect a
Finally.
little bit. Yeah, yeah, and actually, the person who actually kind of tapped me on the shoulder and made me aware that the university was recruiting for this particular role was someone that I had as a professor at FAMU,
Oh,
um, who's now on faculty at Medill.
okay.
So all of those dots,
It all
they really
connects.
do.
Yeah,
They always connect. So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
it's a really unique initiative in the sense that we're taking a super interdisciplinary approach.
Mhm.
We're trying to cross pollinate across business, law, media, marketing, engineering, and kind of combine all of these things in ways that reflect, the future of where work is going and the future of how problem solving is going to happen,
Gotcha.
which is, a tough thing for a university to pull off, but that is exactly, our charge and our mission and what we're trying to do.
Well, with you at the helm of this part of it, I see nothing but success because if I've heard nothing else this whole time we've been talking, is that you have a tendency to get into some really disruptive, innovative pivots. Like it's always this new thing. Like you were there at the dawn of this and the emergence of that and the intersection of this. So you've got experience in those kind of environments. So it's like this is like the perfect storm for you, as far as I see it up to this point. And I think that's awesome. They're very lucky to have you because you have the chops and the experience to back it up.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's a tough challenge, but I'm up for it. And
Yeah.
one thing I love, and I'm glad that you're doing this show because the Detroit diaspora is really powerful, and I
Mhm.
can testify to that. Even here in Silicon Valley, we're a long way from home, but
Mhm.
Detroit people and the Detroit network is super tight, and
Mhm.
um, and I rely on it every day. I mean, it's yeah, it's true. It's unbelievable how much it still factors into everything I do every day.
That's awesome. So I know you're entrepreneurial at heart as well. So are there any other things going on in the periphery that we should know about? Any upcoming stuff? Any?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of skipped over that, but I started a few companies here and there.
A few.
I sold
Okay.
two. I sold two of them, and two of them failed. So half the time I know
Okay.
what I'm talking about, and the other half, you
Man, that's business. I don't even want to hear that. That's business. That's just how it goes. You win some, you
know.
lose some. Hopefully, you get to the point where you can really cash in those chips. So,
Yeah, I mean, the next thing now is looking at the investor side of things. I'm actively advising a few startup founders who have great companies, and I really like doing that. Um, I really enjoy passing back, the answers and what I figured out and what I've learned along the way to young entrepreneurs who are trying to figure it out and make it. Um, and so I think for me, a next step that really is happening in parallel with my role at Northwestern is becoming even more active as an investor,
hmm
and maybe even potentially looking at doing a fund. So this is a great
okay,
time if you have the connections and you have the knowledge and kind of the depth around emerging industries, I would say. Um, this is a great time to be looking at the investor side of things. The
sure.
trick is really thinking about emerging industries and where you feel like you can sort of time things well in terms of when mainstream society will catch up to where emerging
hmm
industries want to take us.
Definitely. That's so awesome. You have just taken us on such a ride. I feel like I've traveled through time. You took me back, and now we're to the future,
You
and
took me back with the
oh.
AOL screen name. Oh my God. I can hear the handshake, the modem handshake now.
No, I can hear
Yeah,
all of
thanks for
the.
that.
Oh goodness, yes, those were the days, and all of those AOL CDs. We just had stacks of them. Like, why are you giving us these?
Right. Right.
So now let's
Right.
transition. So you've told us all about your journey. I do want to make a pit stop at you kind of touched on the whole Detroit connection, but in your experience, what makes the D so special? You talk about your network that you do rely on a consistent basis, but what is it about your a collection of your experiences and your just contacts and everything about that when we talk about in the beginning your foundational growth as a Detroiter, like what makes that so special for you and how has that kind of like been a thread through your whole experience so far?
Yeah, I would say, the theme or the through line is probably grit and resilience more
Mm,
than anything else. I mean, if I describe the culture of Detroit, um, that's a big piece of it. You remember there was this amazing ad that Chrysler did, the imported from Detroit ad that they did for
yes.
the Chrysler 200 that had Eminem in it. And that
Mm-hmm.
was basically the theme of that ad. The ad was really about resilience and grit. And it was
Right.
saying, listen, we might have got knocked down, but we're getting back up. And that's what we do. That's what we're about. And tying it in with Eminem and 8 Mile and the comeback and not giving up. And I mean, it's just the perfect kind of embodiment of like the culture and the theme of what we're about. And I would say that's true for me as well. Um, the most important lesson or the kind of the most important thing that I experienced growing up in the D is just the idea that um, you can only be stopped if you let somebody stop you.
Mm,
If you let somebody stop you, if you let somebody get in your way and create obstacles, and you give up trying to get around those obstacles, then okay, fine, you're done.
mm,
But Detroiters, we have a way of being just relentless in our um, desire and our approach to try to solve a problem. Like we don't give up. I
mm-hmm.
mean, if you look at the city now, like the city is like off the meters. The city is
Oh my
doing
God.
so much amazing stuff. The construction, the level of construction is like, just off the chart. Like we
Mm-hmm.
just don't give up.
No.
And I love that about the D. I think the
Yeah.
other thing is just, you know, I guess realness. And
Mm,
every city thinks they're real. Every city thinks. I'm very close to Oakland. Like people from Oakland, they think they're about it. They think they're super real, and they are in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
But there's something really special about Detroit and the calmness of people being calm in the skin they're in.
Mm.
And people from Detroit, you know, now we can flash. I mean, we can show out with the best
Renegade.
of them. Okay, we know how to do that.
Yes.
But at the same time, we can also see each other and be super real.
Hmm.
There's a very big difference. And I just love that realness of being seen and seeing each other, speaking to each other, greeting each other on the streets, even people you don't know. All of
Hmm.
those things culturally feel very Detroit to me.
They
When I
are.
walk around the streets in other cities, people don't necessarily speak to each other, or greet each other. When I
No.
was growing up in Detroit, it's like everybody spoke to everybody, even if you didn't
Hmm.
know them.
Yeah.
And so that's really a big part of it is the realness and the humility of people from Detroit. And the last thing I would say is just the soulfulness of Detroit, whether it's with hair, whether it's how we do church,
Hmm.
whether it's music, like the through line in all of that is really soulfulness. It's
Yeah.
Motown worked because Berry Gordy was genius in being able to capture the soulfulness and focus more on the soulfulness rather than say the technical polish of the recording or um, the perfection of the intonation of the singers. Or I mean, you go back, you listen to some Motown tracks, you realize, man, that's a little bit out of tune. But
But it
it's
worked.
soulful. It's
Yeah.
soulful. The
Mhm.
soulfulness of the singing is unbelievable, especially when you compare it to what other music was out around that time.
Right.
And the same for how we do church and everything else, the way we dress. Like it's just a very soulful kind of
Food.
culture. The food, right?
Mm.
Mr. Fofos, right? I mean, like the
Mm.
food is also. I know my mom is like,
No,
did he
okay, now
just
you
say
no
Mr.
wait. We can't get ahead of it. That's coming up. That's coming up. Wait a minute. We can't get ahead of it.
My mom is gonna be so mad.
So I'm a foodie, so I don't want to ruin that part. We're getting to
Okay.
that. Okay.
All right.
All right. So we're
Okay.
gonna leave it there. I really do agree with what you said, and I mean, there's actually a lot of Detroiters in Jacksonville, Florida. I meet a lot of Detroiters here, and it's so
Interesting.
funny because it is a certain type of person. I swear,
Right.
I had
It's
as
really
I was
true.
seeing a client. I'm a business consultant. I'm consulting somebody on their nonprofit, and this is somebody that I had known for a couple of years socially, and we're just da 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 da. And she said something about Detroit. Something. I was like, you from Detroit? Cindy B? She's like, yeah. I was like, me too. She's like, really? Like, how do we not know that?
Right.
Kind of, it
I
did.
love it.
Like, oh, that's why we have this. And then we just talked about Detroit for like an hour after
Right.
the consultation. So she was here for a while, and it was so awesome because it's just this. It's almost this palpable thing. You
It
can just
is.
feel it. You can feel
That's
it.
why I tell people all the time about Jamel. So like I said, I know Jamel since, I mean, we met when we were 17 or
Teenagers.
16.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I've known her to like, we go way back. I tell people
Hmm.
like, that's Jamel. That's really Jamel.
Right.
Like, and
Hmm.
her whole thing, her whole persona, everything is like, that's her. There's not a
Right.
lot of daylight because she's just super real. And that's like she's another person who's just a great embodiment of like Detroit culture and what we're about.
Hmm. Definitely. So I
Yeah.
just very outspoken. I said what I said. This is what
Right.
I think. I don't care if
Right.
you don't agree.
Right. I see
Yeah.
you, but you see me too. Like
Right.
I can see you, but you got to see me too. And it's like that's how Detroiters are.
Yeah, that's
You can
true.
get it out of the other thing that I learned. I just got to say this real fast. The other thing that I learned in Detroit, because let's be honest, Detroit is like, when I say real, I mean, realness can be interpreted a lot of ways, but I mean, people in Detroit are not
Authentic.
afraid to fight. I mean, they're not going to back down from a fight necessarily, and we are known for
Okay.
that. But the other side of that, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just keeping it real. The
Mm.
other side of that is Detroit is one of the places where almost any problem or disagreement or scrap can be resolved with respect and
Mhm.
seeing each other. It's not like
Right.
that everywhere. Like
No,
Detroit is
it's
the kind of place where you can be about to have a serious fisticuffs, but if the right words are said to say, acknowledge, I see you, I'm sorry, that's my bad, I didn't mean, it can all go away really quick.
not. Okay.
It's not like that's not true everywhere. At least not in my experience. Not
Right.
in my experience. So
Oh,
it's
no, I think there's some
it's
truth to
yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway.
a very unique place, and another reason why this podcast is so important to me is because since I left Detroit and went to FAMU, like that was culture shock for me. Tallahassee was
Yes.
great
Me
culture
too.
shock.
Yeah, it was
From
huge culture shock.
my only references for Florida at that point in my life were Disney World and Miami
I
Vice.
said the same thing.
So then
I
you
said I
got
thought
the
Tallahassee
country.
was gonna be a combination between Miami Vice and Disney World. I got
Man,
down there and
it
thought I
was
was in
like,
Georgia.
yeah, it was Southern Georgia. That's what they joke and
Right.
say. And I was just like, wow. And then that you compound that with having these people from everywhere. So you get all these different vernacular, like Philly slang. Man, it took me so long to understand. Like, what's a John? A John is that a
Right. Like,
person?
what are you actually
It's
saying? Like,
everything.
is there a T at the end, or
Yeah.
is it an N? Like, how does that?
And I
Oh,
was
is it
like,
a
John,
D? What
like,
letter is at the end of that?
man, and then they had to explain it because I tried to pick up on it and they were using like this is general noun substitute and I was like, wait. So one of my friends she said it was in reference to like a guy like, oh, that's your John, and I was like, John, I'm not a prostitute, I'm like I'm confused, like what are you saying? You need to be clearer because I
That's
don't know what
hilarious.
that is.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
But
you're right. I hadn't thought about that aspect, but it's true because it wasn't just the culture shock of the Southern culture and that deep South culture. It was also Black people who came from all of
from
these other cities.
everywhere.
So you had the Chicago people, they were all deep.
Yep.
You had the New York people and the
York
Philly
people,
people. Then you had the DC
Virginia,
people who were on a
DC.
completely
Yep.
different vibe. And then the
Go-go
Atlanta
music.
was
Ah.
like, it was that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that in a really long time, but that's
Yeah, it was
very
just a
true.
very
Very true.
interesting mix of everything. And it was funny
Yes.
because it also got me to see that where that I think that's when I finally realized that where I'm from is not like everywhere else. Because it was like, I mean, just like they had their words, I'm saying gym shoes in the show, and they're like, what? And pop. Oh, I still say it just to
Oh,
be
the
compliant.
show. You're right. We're the
Yes.
ones that say the show. I still just say the show, and everybody knows what I mean from context. But you're right. I had never even thought of that as a Detroit thing we say. But you're
I
right.
had a very confusing conversation
The
around that,
show.
and that's how I know because a friend of my
That's
best
great.
friend ended up going to Florida State, so we were both in Tallahassee together. We had a mutual friend. He says, "So where is she?" And I'm like, "Oh, she's at the show." What show? I'm like, "The show at the mall." What show at the mall? And I'm like, "The AMC 20 theater." Like, what do you? Oh,
The
why didn't you say
Cineplex.
the
Do you
movie?
prefer that?
Right. I'm like, I didn't know, but people
That's
didn't know
great.
what that was, So it was
Right.
learning that I had
Yes.
my little bubble and other people had all of theirs, and we had to learn how to speak each other's language, so to speak. And
Yes.
it was fascinating.
I
It was
love
a
it.
great experience.
I
So let's
love it.
get to the fun part. Let's get
Okay.
to this is the Fab Five, is what I call this segment. So these are going to
Okay.
be about your favorite Detroit things. We have different categories. I'll introduce them, and
Okay.
then you got to tell us. You got to let us know what's
All
one of
right.
your favorite stuff. All right.
Okay.
So
Got
number
it.
one, what is your favorite Detroit place or landmark?
Uh, favorite Detroit place or landmark would be the Spirit of Detroit and the Joe Louis Fist. The
Okay.
Joe Louis Fist, when they first put it up, I didn't really like it because it just felt too forced. But now that's like the rawest monument ever built.
The
It's like the
real,
rawest.
right?
It's a it's a big black fist suspended in the air of the greatest boxer of all time. Oh no, that's the Joe Louis fist and the Spirit of Detroit, because the Spirit of Detroit is just it's so classic and beautiful, and I just love it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So those are great answers. I don't know if anybody said those yet, but those are good. Okay. Number two.
Runner up would be the DIA and the old Cast Tech building.
Well, Chad mentioned the old cast tag. Yes,
The
we
old
will
Castech
always
building was
forever be
awesome.
in our heart. The pickle
Yes.
factory will be in
The
our hearts
pickle factory.
forever.
Right. Right.
All right, number two, your favorite restaurant or dish, past or current. So this one gets a little complicated for some. So let's see how you do.
Okay. Whew, that's hard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite dish
Restaurant
is
or dish. Okay, so you're giving it to me in pieces. That's fine.
okay. Oh, I can only pick
You can
one. It's
do. You
either
can
got to
do
be a
both. You
restaurant
can do.
or a dish.
No, I'll let you have. I'll let you talk. Yeah, people have their favorites. I won't cut you off.
All right, all right, all right. Okay,
Restaurant.
I'm gonna try to do it quick.
All right.
So, American Coney Island.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was my spot. I spent way too much money there. Probably shaved some years off my life eating American Coney Island. But um, Mr. Fofo's is gone, but the cake from Mr. Fofo's when I was a kid was really great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Buddy's Pizza.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I miss some days. I just miss that Buddy's Pizza. Detroit
Oh,
has a lot of great pizza, so I'm not no disrespect to any other, Little Caesars, Jets, Dino's, Pizza Populi. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah.
great ones. Hungry Howie's, Domino's. We kind of run pizza, but that Buddy's, I don't know. That was the one by Sigma Plaza. That was like the one. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
And
All right.
I annoy everybody when we travel because everywhere we go all over the world, when I see Little Caesars and Domino's, I have to point it out and do the drive by and just make sure everybody understands that's from Detroit, that's from Michigan, and claim that. And they're like, it's just a pizza place. I'm like, no, no, no. It's a pizza place from where I'm from. Do you understand how that works? Like,
Delicious.
we're in
Yes.
Australia and y'all are eating my pizza. Like I was about to. Right.
That's
Right.
hilarious. That's
Yeah, it's great.
hilarious. All right. Number three,
Yes.
your favorite downtown event. So any event that exclusively occurs in the downtown Detroit area.
Whew, that is so hard. I mean, the fireworks are the obvious one. The Detroit fireworks are just unbelievable. So I would probably have to go with the fireworks.
Okay.
Thanksgiving Day Parade is also unbelievable, and African
Hmm.
World Festival is just
Hmm.
the
That's come up
ultimate.
in many, many other interviews. Yes.
That's the ultimate. I mean, I feel like I was there like during the peak of when it really started to get huge, like pre-internet, when it really started to get huge, just from word of mouth,
Hmm.
and everyone saying, "Are you
Hmm.
going? Are you going? Are you going?" And like we all just went, and it was a monster, just took over the whole city.
Yes,
Um, but yeah,
definitely.
those fireworks, man, it's really hard to appreciate how special the Detroit fireworks are. But as somebody who loves fireworks and seen fireworks all over the world, those are some amazing fireworks.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know because I have only seen those and a couple of others.
Well, this is a problem. You're gonna go somewhere else and be disappointed. Like, man, that wasn't all that.
Oh, okay.
Our fireworks are better than that.
Are better.
That's what happens. You get real
You rag
spoiled.
on the fireworks and the pizza. Okay.
And the pizza. Although I'll say Sydney, Australia had nice fireworks. I'll give them their props, but
Okay.
it's not as
Okay.
good as ours. But
Little hate sprinkle on. Okay.
I'm gonna
All
get in trouble
right.
for that comment later.
Yeah, sure, sure. Not my fault. All right. So, number four, your
Yeah,
favorite Detroit sports team.
the Pistons. The Pistons, no doubt. Love the Pistons. The Ben Wallace era was, and Chauncey and Rip. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was just like a crazy
St.
run.
John Prince.
Um, they have the Sports Illustrated ad where they try to get you to subscribe to Sports Illustrated ad and they throw in the commemorative edition of the. I
Mm-hmm.
bought all of that just because I was just like, that
Yes.
was such an amazing run. It felt so
Mhm.
good. I wasn't living in Detroit at the time, so it was extra special for me, just to
Okay.
see the Pistons be so dominant in that time. So yeah, the
Yeah. I
Pistons.
was
I love
there
the
and the traffic
Tigers.
was horrible.
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
Tigers,
yeah.
yes.
I love the Tigers. I have fond memories of being a kid. When Kirk Gibson was hitting it out,
Yeah.
hitting it out the park and stuff, Tiger
Right.
Stadium, and of course the Detroit Lions. You got to
So
be a
are you
Lions
picking one or
fan.
are you just naming them all? Because You're just
I'm
giving
with the
props to the
Pistons.
other ones too. Okay.
I mean, cause
Your
the
answer, because
Lions on Thanksgiving
you started
Day,
like
and
you were like definite yes,
I'm
and then
doing the tour of all the teams. No, but really, it would be the Pistons.
it's the Pistons. Okay, not the Bad Boys though. You
The Bad Boys era was unbelievable too. I mean,
yeah.
John Sally, like I was always John Sally was always my favorite basketball player
Really?
for the Pistons.
Okay.
Magic Johnson is my absolute favorite basketball player of all time, right?
Ever. Okay.
But John Sally, in terms of all of the Pistons who've played, John Sally is my favorite Piston of all time. People always thought that was weird. They're like, well, he's not that good. I'm like, first of all, yes, he is. Second of all, his nickname is the Spider. Like,
Spider.
come on,
Yeah.
man, that's a dope nickname. And he had a and he had a great sense of humor. I just thought John
Yeah.
Sally was he was so
Hilarious.
talented. And now he's on, DJ Vlad and stuff. He's like still out there. Like I love John Sally.
Hmm.
I'm a huge
Yeah.
John Sally, and he's vegan. Like we have so much.
Oh,
I
he
love
is?
John Sally.
Okay. I
Sally,
didn't
get
know
at me. Let's do something. He's great. I love John
He does
Sally.
listen to this. That would be nice. We love.
So yeah, Bad Boys era was, I mean, of course, that's like the ultimate. That's the ultimate.
Yeah.
People forget that Michael Jordan, the Bad Boys actually trained Michael Jordan how to be Michael Jordan. The
Mm-hmm.
Bad Boys taught Michael Jordan how to do all of the stuff you need to do to actually win championships.
Mm-hmm.
I think Michael Jordan will admit that now, even though he's super competitive. Yeah, that Bad Boys era was great. I think I
Yeah.
couldn't appreciate it as much because I was a little kid, um, but yeah, of course, that's like legendary.
Yeah. That was. I think that's what really got me. I mean, my dad was a big basketball fan before that anyway. He loved the Lakers and the Celtics rivalry and then all that. But it was like the Bad Boys was what got me personally invested into basketball.
Hmm.
And then when we didn't repeat, I didn't watch basketball for like 13 years.
Yeah, that was
I
that was
couldn't. It was too
that was
emotional. I
hard.
just couldn't
It
do
was emotional. I agree. It was. It was. It
it.
was. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's not go back there. All right, so number 5, the
Yeah.
last question, then we gotta let you go. Your favorite Detroit memory, and what I mean by that is a memory that you have that's so Detroit it couldn't have happened anywhere else any other way.
Nelson Mandela was freed by the government of South Africa. When he came to the United States, the first place he went was Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
He came to Tiger Stadium.
Tiger
We had
Stadium.
a massive rally.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say Stevie Wonder was there, Frankie Beverly and Mays was there. It was like a huge. We just had a party, just all
Mm-hmm.
afternoon and all night
Yeah,
before he actually came out and addressed the crowd.
it was
And I mean, we
televised.
were there like 6 hours. I mean, it was like an all
Okay.
day thing.
Yeah.
Um, Nelson Mandela coming on stage in a packed Tiger Stadium, full of people who held him down and actively fought for him to be released for all those years. We never actually thought it was going to happen. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
should say that differently. I'm sure older people, they had no idea if it was ever going to happen. Young
Right.
people like me, we actually thought that we were the straw that broke the camel's back because,
Mm-hmm.
when I learned about Nelson Mandela and I got passionate about it and started writing letters and we started doing protests and stuff like that at CAS, like we thought our effort was actually
Was
the reason.
real.
Our effort had nothing to do with it, but in our minds, it was like we did it, we did it. So we
Yeah.
felt a very powerful sense of ownership. But
Right.
Nelson Mandela coming on stage
Mm-hmm.
and he actually messed it up. He called it Motor Town
Right. I remember that.
instead of he meant the Motor City or Motown. You could say either Motor City or Motown. He
Motown.
said Motor Town,
Motown. I remember
but
that.
it was so genuine and heartfelt. It
Mm-hmm.
was so genuine and heartfelt, and I'm in this stadium full of people, and we're all chanting, and that was the most Detroit. That was like the ultimate connection of the diaspora of like we are here, we are seen. He sees us, we
Mm-hmm.
see him. He's out, and it just felt like this very powerful like culmination and turning of a chapter It was
That
just
I agree. I remember that. I watched it on television at my grandparents' house, and I don't think because what year was that? 90, I don't
I think that was
three, four.
no, it was I think it was 89. It was either
Oh,
89 or 90. Hang on.
oh, gee. Okay, so I'm way off, but I was young, so I don't think
Yeah.
I really realized how important that was at the actual
Mhm.
time it happened. But I
Mhm.
remember watching it and seeing how
Right.
excited everyone was. So it is.
Right.
But I remember when he said that. When you said that, I can hear his voice saying it. Yes.
Right. Yeah, it was
Awesome.
90. It
90.
was 1990. Yeah.
So I was 10.
Yeah.
So I don't think I was really up on the whole political piece of that at that
And
moment.
the day they announced it, the day the day they announced it and they broadcast it on they interrupted programming on the television news to announce it.
Hmm.
I don't even know how we found out because there was no internet. Um,
Right.
but somehow it was announced, and I believe that David Sneed at Cass Tech actually came on the PA system and made the announcement. Like I think he
Wow.
actually like made a school-wide announcement, and we
Wow.
literally just we like came out of class into the hallways and were like high-fiving and hugging and
Yeah.
crying. And then the next day,
Uh-huh.
we basically canceled all the classes, and
Wow.
we just held a rally in the recital hall at Cass Tech, and we did performances all day.
Wow.
LZ Granderson, the CNN commentator and journalist, he was a part of that group.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so there was like a, I mean, it was like really emotional,
That's
unbelievable.
a whole other level.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Okay. Man, so I can't believe it's over. I had so
This was
much
super fun.
fun.
Yeah, let's do it
Yes,
again.
definitely. So keep us updated on what you're doing. Hopefully we can circle back around maybe next season and catch up with you again. Maybe get into
Yeah, that would be cool.
discussion. But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you, Lawrence. You have been a wonderful addition to our collection thus far. You're going to kick off our second season. How cool is that? At this point, I
That's
think
awesome.
I have to make this 2 episodes because this was longer than I wanted, but it's chock full of stuff, and I don't want to like overwhelm the listeners. So I think this deserves. You're going to be our first two-parter. Look at you making history again, disrupting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been really a pleasure and it was super fun. And I
Yes.
look forward to talking to you again soon.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. This is the Detroit Hustle Podcast. Catch up with us next week where we have our next guest lined up, and you're going to love it. Bye.